Now I please invite Ms. Koral Dasgupta, Mr. Anand Neelakantan, and Ms. Sangita Jaiswal for the next session on mythology. Let's understand the power that mythology holds over us from the eminent panelists here, Ms. Koral Dasgupta and Mr. Anand Neelakantan. Please give them a round of applause. Ms. Koral Dasgupta is an author of Indian mythological fiction in English. She has published 9 books and is best known for her Sati series. Recognized amongst Innovator 25 Asia Pacific by the Holmes Report and Outlook Businesses Women of Wonder series, her work is archived in global institutions like Harvard and Columbia. We welcome you to Lucknow, ma'am. Anand Neelakantan, a best-selling author and celebrated mythological fiction writer, Sita Jaiswal.
So, as enumerated by Manjula ji, both Anand ji and Koral have not only achieved accolades for their writings in fiction, but in various diverse fields. But today we will concentrate on the topic that is mythology, its contemporary interpretation, relevance and influence by exploring their writings in Indian mythology, which comprises of reimagined stories that that have been derived from Indian spiritual texts as well as mythology. So, namely the Vedic and Puranic texts, then of course the Panchatantra tales, folklore legends, and of course our great epics, the Ramayana and Mahabharata, and which all are huge repositories of inspiring stories that have shaped our consciousness over the centuries. The gods, demons, the deeds of heroes and villains have actually molded our sensibilities, our personal choices over the years. And of course, when we speak of, this is distinct from historical writing, as in this gives space for a greater liberty to explore or interpret stories in their own way. So my first set of questions would be to the both of you, what drew you to Indian mythology as a source of inspiration for your writing? Any particular incidents or any cultural influences that led you to explore this avenue?
Thank you. Basically, I grew up with Indian Puranas. I won't call it mythology because English is a very dangerous language, very limiting language, though I'll write in English. Many of these things cannot be translated properly to English. It doesn't have equivalent words because Purana is neither myth or mythology, nor it is history as some people make it out to be. It is timeless actually. It is not a long, old, dead tales. It's a living tradition. It's not a dead tales of, say, Greek mythology, which is the civilization itself is gone. The present day Greece has little or no relationship to that, or Egyptian or Norse mythology. You can't equalize it to a living tradition. So I grew up in a place which has more temples than necessary, perhaps. Almost 108 temples in a small village. Most of them about 1,000 years old. They are all having the tradition of, this from the south I am saying, from Kerala. This was the ancient capital of the Chera kingdom. Most of you, at least in history books, would have heard about Chera Chola Pandyas or the old Chera kingdom's capital. It had temples from 400 AD onwards and continuing tradition of oral and visual arts. So this is given as an offering to the deities there. So this 108 temples means it pretty much covers most of the Indian gods, right? So all their tales, whether it is Devi or Shiva or Ram or Krishna or many of the village folk gods, all these things are usually played as a play both in Sanskrit and Malayalam and in Tamil. All the 3 languages, because Tamil is also a very ancient language. Malayalam came hardly 1,000 years ago, 1,300 years ago. So, but many of these traditions continue much before that, right from second century BC, like Kudiyattam and all. So I grew up listening to that. And one good thing or bad thing you can say is that these are the places which are untouched perhaps by invasions and other things. So this is like a museum. Many of the like Kudiyatam, the Sanskrit theatre of Bhasa, even now it is Bhaskavis, even now it is played every day in the temples. So you get it in an unadulterated format, which is a very confident way of telling stories. So you have Bhasa, as you know, he told many of the stories from the contrarian point of view, where Urubanga, where it's Duryodhana as the hero, or an alternate take on Mahabharata like Panjaratra. So I grew up listening to these tradition, and one form of entertainment was people use mostly folk singers. I won't call them pandit in a caste sense, but they are all scholars. These are the traditional communities who will come and sit on either side and start debating about the story. One will take Pandava side, one will take Kaurava side. It's done as a means of entertainment, telling what is right and what is wrong. And next time when they come, these sides they would have changed. Yesterday who had argued for Pandavas will be arguing for Kauravas. So this is how they used to teach us, and I come from that tradition. Hence I write Asura, which is Ravan's Ramayana. At the same time I wrote Siyake Ram, which is Sita's Ramayana in the television. I wrote Vanara, where Bali is the hero. And at the same time I was writing Mahabali, Sankat Mahabali Hanuman in Sony TV, where Bali is a villain. So I come from that tradition. Thank you.
So, I used to read mythology a lot, and the characters in mythology, the symbolisms of Shiva and Kali. I come from Bengal, so Kali is very Jagrut in Bengal. So, all those things, the etymology and the symbolism, they attracted me a lot. But unlike what Anand said, that he comes from that culture where reverse narrative was welcome. I come from the culture, I come from a very conservative Bengali family, जहाँ पे ज़्यादा सवाल पढ़ो तो दो थप्पड़ मिलते हैं. So when you know that that will happen, a lot of questions keep swirling into your mind, especially when you don't exactly feel comfortable about that narrative. So a lot of women's narratives were, swirling around, and they had been swirling around for a very long time. And I was trying to find reasons because I had a very strong belief that there is something जो पकड़ में नहीं आ रहा. There is something to it which is there. This is ancient wisdom, and there are so many things that I agree. There are so many things that I understand, and if there is something that I am not understanding, then it is lacking on my part. I am not getting into it. So that kept on, I think, swirling inside my brain, and at some point of time there was a spark, a small one, with Ahalya, where I felt that the understanding of Indra in Ahalya's story, I mean, every man's story is a woman's story, and every woman's story is a man's story. That is how I look at relationships or gender equations. I felt that the entire game is about understanding Indra, and if there is one, एक कड़ी अगर गलत पड़ गया तो सारे के सारे गलत पड़ जाएंगे. And Indra is present in all the 5 books that I have written, very strong character in all the 5. It began with Ahalya, and it was a spark which got me to write Ahalya, and I didn't know what will be the other 4 stories be. I just told my publisher that ऐसा है, ऐसा लिखा है, बाकी 4 लिखना है, करोगे क्या? And they said yes, and that's how it happened.
Thank you. And very diverse reasons for taking to writing on mythology. So we come to the next set of questions, and before that, there's this oft-quoted African proverb: "Until the lion tells the story, the hunter will always be the hero." So that, of course, so we always know that history is told, or stories are told of victors' point of view, not from the loser's point of view. So, for instance, even in our Indian tradition, हम लोग मनाते हैं, दुर्गा पूजा मनाते हैं, और दुर्गा, we worship goddess Durga because she slays Mahishasur, and he is the evil incarnate. He is somebody who the evil has to be destroyed. But we do know now, and even beforehand, that there are indigenous tribal cultures that worship Mahishasur. But हम उनकी कहानी नहीं जानते हैं, because, like I said, उनकी कहानी कोई बोलने वाला नहीं है, and therefore it is very important to understand. And my next question is, Why is it important to understand different perspectives for Indian mythology?
African proverb is for Africans. In Indian, this proverb is slightly different. It's not just the lion and the hunter who is telling the story. The hyena, when the lion is killed, hyena has another story to tell. For him, he was living with whatever lion was hunting. So it is a tragic incident for him. So there is that viewpoint. Then you have the story of the deer who was scared of the lion. For deer, it's a liberation. So that's another point of telling the story. So India had revealed in telling stories from all these angles and not just the lion and the hunter's angle. Even from the sparrow to crow to every angle it has told. That's why we have such a diverse narrative. And like Ajaya, the book I wrote 10 years ago, that is Duryodhana's Mahabharata. It's not my brainchild as such. I was just following an age-old tradition. So if you have your mobile, don't do it now, but later, just go to YouTube and search Malanada Temple Festival. Malanada, Malanada, Malanada Temple Festival. Porivali Malanada Temple Festival. The other one will be difficult to pronounce. Just type Malanada Temple Festival. Malanada Temple Festival, around 10 lakh people come every year. Sometimes more than that. It's like Puri Jagannath's cart festival. Different carts are taken out. So they make the cart using coconut fronds and other things. Massive one, 30 feet, 40 feet. They draw through the village. Huge ceremony happens. So this is a symbolism of Mahabharata war. And the deity of that temple who they are taking around is Duryodhana. And this is not a new temple like New Age temple, 20 years, 30 years. This is thousands of years old. This tradition is continuing from time immemorial. At least from 8th century AD, you have written references of the festival happening there. 8th century AD onwards. At that time itself, it was a very ancient festival. So, Duryodhana, Shakuni, Dushasana, these are the people who are taken around as in the Rath Yatra, and people come to worship that. And there is also a Shiva temple nearby, so they take it to the Shiva temple and they do the puja of Shiva, they do the puja of all these Shakuni, Dushasan, Duryodhana and all, because they consider them as God and their side as the right side. So when I had gone there once to see the festival, I had already written Asura, Ravana's Ramayana, in which Sita is the daughter of Ravana. Around 32 Ramayans, at my count, Sita is the daughter of Ravan. So the entire story changes. And old Ramayans I am talking about. The entire, most of the oral South Indian Ramayans to all the Ramayans in the Southeast Asia up to Philippines, a lot of them have Sita as the daughter of Ravan. Maybe they had all traveled from the south itself to the entire coastal belt. So I had written Asura, then I had gone here. So there this question was asked to me by one of the devotees of Duryodhana there who was dancing. After his dance when we were sitting, I just asked him, why do you pray to Duryodhana? He said, why not? Sishta Devada. And another question he asked, which stayed with me, which I put it as a first line in my Ajaya, Roll of the Dice and Rise of Kali book. So he asked this question, if it was good versus evil. She talked about vanquishing evil. The question is, what is evil? So the question this village gentleman put to me was, if Mahabharata was Dharma Yudh, and it was Kurukshetra was Dharma Kshetra, and if it was Dharma which won over Adharma, a Satya Yuga should have come. He said, what did come? Kali Yuga came. The so-called Dark Age came. So what was it that won? Is it the evil that won? Or the good that won? Then the question comes, who's evil and who's good? This is where the fulcrum of Indian thought is, where you see things from various perspectives, and hence in this country, there on one side when the Durga Puja is happening and Mahishasura is considered evil, on the next village it will be the other way around, where Mahishasura is considered as a god. This is also part of Indian tradition. Can we say they are not Indians? It's a part of age-old Indian tradition. One side, Krishna, in the same village where this Duryodhana temple is there, Krishna temple also is there. Same devotees will pray to Duryodhana and go to Krishna and pray to him also. This is the Indian culture what we are talking about, and there is no black and white narrative in this country.
Wonderful. I think you expressed it very beautifully that there is no black and white, and therefore we must have stories from all over. So, in coming on to this the same role of interpretation, when we discuss the female perspective, we notice there is no representation of women's stories in their words, right? They, so all these women were beautiful, intelligent, highly powerful, and diligent in their work. But they have always been portrayed as somebody's wife, as for instance Sita or uh, Gandhari, or mother, for instance Kunti, or a daughter. So, but never protagonists of their own stories. So we have one perspective, and I have just read some books of Corals, which in which she describes their stories. And therefore, so I wanted to ask you, can you discuss the importance of female characters in Indian mythology and their representation in your works? And a specific, with specific interest in the phrase that you use, Panchakanyas. I mean, what do they denote, and how did you come to write about the Sati series?
So Panchakanya is not my phrase. Panchakanya is a term which has been used in the ancient texts. And it is said that if you recite the name of Panchakanya, there's a sloka which says that if you recite the name of Panchakanya, Ahilya, Kunti, Draupadi, Mandodari, Tara, a lot of your sin gets dispelled. Now, this sloka doesn't say that only women should take the name, recite the name of these five, and then only women's sin will get dispelled. Oh, please. So, that, I mean, there are a lot of things that, just spark when you are trying to read very, very closely. There is this sloka which says, I'm a Bengali, so I know this particular one. Om Devi Sarva Bhuteshu Matri Rupenu Samsita. It doesn't say that Matri Rup, it says Sarva Bhuteshu, which means in every mortal being. It doesn't say only in women. Matri Rupenu Samsita. Devi is present in her motherly form in every mortal being. It doesn't say only in women. What it led me to understand is that when mythology, and that is the reason why I treat these stories as philosophical narratives and not as commercial fiction, because I understand that these stories have a lot of truth to explore, and if you are willing to understand those, you get a lot to learn from life. When the sloka says, take the names of these five and sins will get dispelled, it is not just saying that recite these five every morning. It's not saying that. It is saying try to engage with these stories. And a lot of mind blocks that you have, a lot of fears that you have, a lot of things that stop you, a lot of things that cause discomfort to you, you will find them going away. You will find them, and because you will ask questions, and those questions will lead you somewhere, and you will feel that power inside you, that spiritual power, not the kind of power that I use on Anand or he does on me. So, when I was writing these stories, I didn't have a woman's narrative in mind. I'm a storyteller. I was talking to you in the morning. I don't identify as a feminist. I don't identify as any kind of activist. I'm a storyteller. But in the process of writing, what I felt that in mythology, things that are happening in a man's world can repeat in a woman's life. And things that are happening in a woman's life can repeat in a man's world. And that is how things are circulating. If you are careful, if you are conscious about receiving those, you will receive the signals that right now I am living into that Karna syndrome. Right now I am living into that Arjun syndrome, Draupadi syndrome, whatever. So
we all go through those entire gamut of emotions. It's not just limited to a woman's point of view.
So when I was writing the stories, I was basically trying to read between the lines of various stories and trying to find answers of those which were questions in my mind. Kunti had the boon. Kunti recited the boon. Kunti had to engage with Surya. Kunti gave birth to Karna. Surya knew that the girl had made a mistake and she doesn't want further. He could have refused. Why didn't he? Those are the kind of questions that I wanted to explore, and those are the kind of questions that I have tried to provide an answer to.
Thank you, Koral. And I also wanted to ask you, Anandji. Like I asked Koral because she's a woman, so a woman point of female-centric point of view. But also when you are speaking about women, of course men do a good job, but do you feel limited in answering questions from or presenting their point of view? I read Valmiki's Women and I think you've done, I mean I didn't know about Shanta, that Ram had an elder sister. I did not know and it was a fascinating story. So how did you go about it?
I think this Indians traditionally, the sexual imageries were fluid. Sexual identities were fluid in India always. It is only after the Victorian era morality that we became so men, women. We are trying to import a lot of things here which was not there. So, a simple example in the popular culture, Pushpa 2, a commercial film, masala film. But even in that, one of the most famous sequences is the Jatra, where the hero, so-called the masculine hero, his name itself is a feminine name, Pushpa. And he comes in the female dress. Ramakrishna Paramahamsa used to worship as a female, one form of bhakti. He is male becoming female, and the famous imagery of Radha becoming Krishna and Krishna becoming Radha, Shiva and Parvati getting interchanged. So many stories are there and so many traditions are there where there is this kind of difference. No, this is a masculine world and this is a feminine world. It should be always like this. It should not be like this. Males are supposed to do this. Females are only supposed to do this. Everything in the Puranas, it has been broken. The greatest warrior is Mahagali. It's a mother, this thing. No, Kali is considered as the greatest of all warriors. Of course, you can always say it is Shaktaya tradition and all. But even in other traditions also, Kali is considered, Parashakti, Mahakali is considered as the greatest warrior. Who is the most feminine of gods? It's not Devi, it's Krishna. He's the most feminine of gods. So you find that there is no difference at all. So when I write, as I said, my writing is very much influenced by the oral and very rooted oral storytelling tradition. So I don't feel that it is like as she said, I'm a storyteller. The moment when I'm talking about the story of Shanta or Shurpanaka, I try to become that character. Doesn't mean I'm going to roam around wearing a sari or proposing to random men. But you can understand the feeling and write it. It's about the emotions what you write. So I never felt that. I hope Valmiki's Women or in Vanara, which is very Vanara, even though the name is Vanara, it is more of a Tara story which I have written in the Vanara book. And one small thing, you all know it, nothing to point out, but none of the Panchakanyas were Kanyas. And they don't follow any of the modern moral standards meant for women.
Yes, you can please take it forward.
Kanya is virgin, and I think it is a stretch of imagination to call Kunti or Draupadi as virgin, because it's a problem with the translation to English, because Kanya has so many other deeper meanings also. So many a times when you translate even a word like Bhagavan, there is no, God is not the equivalent of Bhagavan, or gods is not the equivalent of Bhagavan. Devata, there is no equivalent for, it's not idol. There is no equivalent words for something which I struggle at least, because I came from a rustic. English was never my first language. My first English book I read when I was 16 years old, apart from the textbook which teachers used to force me to read, which I never read. I was a very bad student. 16 year only, the first book was Freedom at Midnight, one Malayalam copy and one English copy. That's when I started reading the English books. Hindi I learned much later, though I have written a lot of Hindi series in English. That's another story. But this is something which I struggled with. How to translate the Indian language words. So most of these in Puranas, the words are common, whether in Malayalam, in Hindi, Bengali. These are all Sanskrit rooted words. How do you translate Atma to English? It's not soul. Totally different cultural context goes for a 6. This is one struggle. Both of us, she also would have definitely felt it. All of us writing about Indian Puranas in English will face this, or translating them. But coming to the point, there is no difference between male or female in Indian thing. It is about the human emotions. That's why if Vyasa could write so beautifully about women or Valmiki could write such the most powerful character in mythology. It's not Draupadi. We always fight for that. It's Sita. Sita is the greatest character written, and it is not the Tulsidas Sita, Valmiki Sita. Again, big difference.
No, though I would still say that had Sita written her own story, that would have been a different case. I mean, that's
No,
what I wanted
Valmiki
to
has
say.
written enough. The problem is many of us now associate Sita with the medieval image of Sita, where when the Tulsidas Ramayana was written in a particular geography and in a particular period in history, where the Sita looks more like the wife of the that time's emperor rather than Lord Ram's wife, Ramji's wife of Valmiki. There's a huge difference which I tried to explore in Siyake Ram in Star TV. I don't know, 10 years back it came. How many of you had seen it? I don't know. Some I tried to explain, but again, commercial pressure is something else. Slowly it became Tulsidas Ji Sita alone. Because it's too revolutionary for, especially for a Hindi heartland audience to accept the Sita of Valmiki. Because for 400 years at least, the Sita, the docile Sita of Tulsidas Ji, which was a need of that time, is what it is there in the mind. The other Sita of Valmiki, it is, Ramayana is as much Sitayan if we take the Valmikis. So that is why I wrote it as Valmiki's women. All the characters which I wrote in the Valmiki's women are Valmiki's take of Surpanaka, Valmiki's take of Shanta, rather than the popular takes what we hear now.
Thank you. Okay, so coming from that, we live in times where art or creative expression is being stifled or twisted to suit political, religious agendas. On one hand, we have a horrific attack on Salman Rushdie for his writings. On the other hand, we have, a huge uproar and acts of vandalism for even simple things like a film name. For instance, changing from Padmavati to Padmavat. So, do you think that the space for a liberal discourse is shrinking, reflecting in a curbing of creative freedom in contemporary writings? And also, how do you navigate cultural sensitivities, personal biases, and potential controversies when writing about mythology or any other form of writing?
I think trolls don't read books. That's a very good news. So for a troll, they don't have the patience to read a full book, and I completely understand where they come from. They need the entire book in one sentence, which is impossible for anybody to do. So that 50,000, 60,000, 1 lakh word book, which trolls do not have the energy to read, are read by intellectuals, and they understand. Just like Anand was talking about Sita. See, when I think of Sita, there is one simple question that Ravan was trying to convince Sita to get married to him, and Sita was not willing. Had Ravan been able to convince Sita to get married to him, Ramayana would have ended there. The war wouldn't be required. Ram would be defeated with Sita's concept. There itself was the end of the story. The story dragged more because Sita was not willing. Now, let any intellectual come forward and say that I am talking trash. They will not. They will understand, and it is not my activism. It is not my feminism. It is pure logic. Now, there would definitely be a troll who will say, "Oh, cha, you are saying that Sita is all in all. Ram doesn't." Yes, of course, they will. But I think the book world
So safe
more,
because
more
it's
safer.
an intellectual space,
Yes.
right?
There are attacks on many authors and their books burned and banned, and of course we have the case of Salman Rushdie. That is because a part of the narrative got blown out of context. Too many people globally got involved in it, and the reason was religious. With Anand's writing, it is very folklore. Of course, he will talk more about it, but it is rooted. And you dare challenge, and he will give you all
No.
those.
So I come to the point,
Yeah.
like what you've explained.
And what I am writing is philosophy, which half the people don't know. So we are safe.
That's a good one. For instance, when I was reading Ajay, when we see Duryodhan being a protagonist, of course, when he's a hero and then we downplay the other characters just to juxtapose. So, have you ever received any negative feedback, or generally people go with the flow?
First of all, what I have to say is there is this false equivalence of saying, it's very fashionable to say, and we have been taught to say the last 70, 75 years, that all religions are equal, all religions are same. They are not. Then there is no need of different religions, right? Every religion is different. The way every religion reacts to certain things will be in different ways. Why are we scared to talk about it? Also, you cannot bring a false equivalence of saying Salman Rushdie faced certain things, why Anand Neelakantan is not facing. First, Salman Rushdie is a much bigger writer. Second thing, Anand Neelakantan is a different writer. Or any other people writing on that. We are writing on different topics. So all religions are not equal. That's the first thing I would boldly say. Second thing, in India, the sensitive issue is caste rather than religion. So most of the things like Padmavat or Perumal Murugan, what happened, there are 1,000 literature in Tamil which is against all religions. Forget Hinduism, against Islam, against Christianity. There are thousands of them in Malayalam because these are the places which always had atheistic tradition for thousands of years. Nothing will happen for all these things. The moment people touch on caste, that is where many of these things are sensitive things are happening. So in certain religion, the sensitive issue is the holy book or things related to that. Certain religions, the sensitive thing is the caste and the caste pride. In certain other religions, it was like when Dan Brown wrote, the so-called liberal Christians were up in the arms in many countries, right? So their sensitive point is that. So unless and until somebody touches those sensitive points, every religion will be responding differently. So what happens is, when I am writing about traditions which already exist. So if somebody says my feeling is hurt because you called Duryodhan God, there will be another 10 lakh people standing up and saying, what the heck are you talking about? He is our God. We are praying him for the 1500 years. There are places where they don't celebrate Vijayadashmi, right? In Mithila and all Maithili Brahmins. There are places where Sita's people, they don't do it. There are places where Vijayadashmi, Mahishasura's people don't celebrate. So this tradition keeps on. We are so varied a tradition that whatever story you say, there will be 100 different versions of the story. My next book is Many Ramayanas, Many Lessons, which I had given it as an audio book in Audible, which was one of the highest listened audio book. This is whatever oral tradition I have heard about Ramayana, mostly from South and Southeast Asia. I compiled it as a book of Ramayana, which is Harper is publishing. January it is coming. In that, one challenge I have given you, imagine the most absurd fact. There will be some Ramayana which has that. I am not saying Ramayana is absurd. Like, for us it's very difficult to think. Just to think that Hanumanji, the Brahmachari god, he has multiple wives. There are Ramayans talking about that. This is not to offend anyone. These are the traditions in some other country, not in India. But there are traditions where Hanumanji is married and Hanumanji is such a charmer that he is more like Krishna. There are Ramayans where the Rasalila of Krishna is transposed to Ram. Ram doing Rasalila. There are Ramayans where Ram and Sita are siblings and not husband and wife. So many traditions are there which I had compiled and given with proof. So this is nothing to get offended or anything. This shows the richness and depth of this great story, how it influenced across Asia so much civilizations, and each place made it its own. So answering your question, why it is not, it is perhaps we have not touched those points which is sensitive for certain the people. The other thing, because it's a part of tradition in Hinduism where the gods gets criticized or debated, that is how they have been always taught. So Shaivism criticizes Vaishnavism criticizes Shaktaya, and this thing, each same story you can find, the same story of Jyotirlinga where Brahma and Vishnu go in search of the end of Shiva and they are not able to find it. Same story is told in the Vaishnava tradition the other way around, where Shiva and Brahma are going to see and they are not able to find Vishnu.
So we are actually safe to say that all of us here are proud of our pluralistic tradition. Here people are not going to take umbrage about anything that...
Except caste. When we are saying about positive, we should talk about negatives also. So caste is a bane which for thousands of years, the great saints of India have been fighting against. In these parts you take from Kabir to Surdas to south you go Basava to Narayana Guru. So many saints, they have been fighting for thousands of years against this tradition, living their life. From Guru Nanak Ji, everything came as an anti-caste movement in India. Apart from the spiritual tradition, all the saint tradition in India, including Tulsidas Ji's, if you find, because Vedas could not be read by anyone else, that's why the Ramayana was written in various languages. So this has been addressed. It's nothing new. Because of constitution we are trying to make the caste away. This is the tradition of India, where each saint has fought against it, and that is a sensitive and what you call weakness of the India. You touch the caste like Padmavati, people will behave worse than what happened to Rushdie. Or same thing happened to Perumal Murugan. So caste, certain parts we can be proud of, certain parts we still have to be ashamed of, and we should not shy away from it.
Yes, I'm glad you pinpointed it. Also I wanted to ask you, you've written the prequel to the Bahubali series. That's a popular, I think, question that audiences want to know about. So, can we discuss the potential for crossover or fusion of Indian mythology with other genres like sci-fi or fantasy? We are getting into it. So there is a huge. Do you foresee?
The book I am writing now is that. The book I am writing now is on Mahishasura, but it's set in the future. So that is a combination of science fiction and mythology. So that is Penguin is publishing it, but after this is coming in January, the other one is a Diwali release next year.
And what about you, Koral? What about you? What is your next series? I mean, apart from the Sati series, are you thinking of anything or?
No, I'm chilling right now. 5 years, 5 books have been really exhausting. So it's not that I'm not talking about the next project or I'm not thinking about it, but not very actively. Right now, I wanted to really take a break because a lot of juices have gone out. I want a little recap.
So also I wanted to ask you, do you think, when you talk about influence of contemporary writing, mythological writing, do you think there is a connection between mythology and the Indian character, the Indian identity, in terms of how we perceive ourselves or are conditioned in a certain which way?
Definitely, no? Definitely, because everything, especially the less westernized you are, the more rooted you are, this is what the villages of India still breathe. They might be illiterate, but they have deep knowledge on Ramayana or Mahabharata. You travel across India. Most of my writing comes from essentially travel and interacting with the oral storytellers. Still, this works as a big entertainment and also as a moral education. So Indian value system is based on, irrespective of religion, Indian value system owes a lot to various Puranas, and they don't propagate a monomyth or a mono set of morals, one set of morals. So even the diversity we owe to it, the diversity of Indian Puranas.
Therefore you can deal with the moral ambiguities that any of the characters might possess. So it's easier because there is this plurality of tradition.
There is not just moral ambiguity, even the concept of what is right and what is wrong, what is dharma has been. All our books are debates about what is right rather than good versus evil. It is always about from which point you look at it. So it is said that Vyasa wrote 4 Mahabharatas. This is a belief from 4 different point of views. And what we have got is only one. And the Duryodhana Mahabharata, Ashwatthama Parva, some extent of it we have received it. So we have a glimpse of what it could have been, which I used in my Ajaya. So Ashwatthama Parva is the where you are seeing the entire Mahabharata from Duryodhan's side. Another point of view of seeing Mahabharata is from the Naga's side, Takshaka and other people. Ultimately, Takshaka is the one who wins. So Takshak side is one point of seeing it. So I use that also in Ajaya. And another one is to see the entire Mahabharata, which we have not got it, but many other books we can find the glimpses, other oral storytelling we can have the glimpses. Just to illustrate that point I am telling it, some people will be familiar with it because it comes from mostly the Northeast and North Indian, Bihar, UP oral telling tradition is where first I encountered this. Other parts of the country also it is there. This is telling the entire Mahabharata is not a war between Pandavas and Kauravas. This is another point of view. It is the Drupada's war. Drupada, so instead of Shakuni, Drupada, Drishtitimna and Draupadi are the people. Draupadi is sent. Drupada gets Draupadi from, she is Yajnaseni, right, from the fire. Both Drishtitimna and Draupadi and Shikhandi. All these people are sent. That is why Drishtitimna is the commander-in-chief of Pandavas. In this Ramayana, Mahabharata, neither Arjuna, Krishna, none of them matters. It is Drupada who is ensuring that these people fight and his enemies, the Kurus, are finished. And which he achieves it. So Draupadi, even Draupadi is forced to marry all the five so that this can happen. There is another point of view of looking at Mahabharata.
It's a vast topic.
It's a vast topic. So there is an oral telling. Imagine it. No, we have heard about Krishna doing this, Shakuni doing that. These are side characters. The moment you think from Drishtidyumna, that is why Ashwatthama comes and he comes to kill Drishtidyumna. Because that is the conclusion of the war. Everything ticks. So instead of Shakuni, it becomes Drupad who makes the war. And Draupadi a totally different character. So these are the traditions which are still living traditions, which we have to explore. We have not even scratched the surface.
So we can carry on with so many stories to tell, but what advice would you give to aspiring writers interested in Indian mythological fiction?
Read all my books, morals books also.
And if you were to identify both of you with any one mythological character, what would that be? I mean, if either
Ravan.
Okay. And what about you, Gaurav?
I'll tell you the reason.
You first finish.
First, you finish.
Because
You are Surmanaga, right? Okay, so Ravan, why Ravan? So I deal with it in my last book. It's a non-fiction called Asura Marga or Asura Way. Jaco had published it. Hindi also it is available. Asura Way. Where I argue about, this is from the Lokayata or Charvaka tradition of India. So that is another form of philosophy which lot of rishis were there, including one major rishi in Ramayana called Jabali, who was a minister of Dasharath, who was there to teach Ram about the materialistic point of life. So Ravan represents that. So you think Ramayana, don't get offended. Which way to run, I don't know. Don't get offended. This is just for an argument's sake. In the, what you call the samvad, what you do. No, the same thing I am telling. We can agree that we can all pray to Ram. I also will call Jai Sri Ram. But let us go by this example. You are given a choice of a life. Okay. One life is you are born as a prince. And then you are about to become the king. Your stepmother conspires along with a maid. Stepmother conspires and your father has no spine or whatever it is. He sends you out. And you go to forest. Your brother also comes. And your wife also insists that she comes. So you have to take along your wife also. You are going and then the other brother comes and takes your chappals also and goes. Now you are in the jungle. Without chappal also, and you are in the jungle, you are a prince, you are in the jungle. This is the contrary point of view, nothing to get offended, I am just putting it point by point. You are in the jungle, and one ruffian, rascal or whoever you call, he comes, and in between story I am leaving, he comes and kidnaps your wife when you go to get a deer. You have been reduced to a position of a hunter. You are the prince of one great kingdom. and your wife is taken away, then you have to take the help of lot of monkeys, and then you go and make the setu, the bridge, with the help of squirrels and monkeys and bears. You go there, fight, 3 times you almost die, 3 times Hanuman saves you. Once Garuda, twice Hanuman actually, to put it straight. 3 times you almost die. Finally, with great difficulty you kill this person, get the wife, then you are suspicious, you leave the wife, you come home, then she enters the fire, she proves she is chaste, you come back to the kingdom, some drunken washerman says something, again you leave your wife, the wife brings up the kids on as a single mother heron, those sons come and defeat your army and you, and then again you are there, again you are asking for another Agni Pariksha, and she says that is enough, and she goes out. Then you live in that sadness, then your brother, you are forced to curse, and brother has to walk into, brother has to die, forced to die, then you walk into Sarayu. This is one life, and ultimately you are prayed and you are the God. And this is good way if you tell, he is a Tyagamurti. This is a sacrifice we are celebrating. So what do? We make them like Mahatma Gandhi's life is similar. So you elevate him to Mahatma. And then we follow the typical Indian politician. Who are the Indian politicians? The Ravan. Take the Ravan's life. So Mahatma Gandhi never came to power. No, he's like Ram. It's all Tyagamurti. Mahatma's life also we can tell like this. No? He went there to Africa. He was thrown out of the train instead of having ticket. Then all throughout his life, he couldn't have food. Finally, during partition riot also, finally somebody came and shot him and he was elevated to Mahatma. His entire fight, who enjoyed after that? The people who came after him, who wear the khadar, and later the people who are against him, for him, everybody is using him and enjoying power. Same thing with Ram. But Ravan's life, this is your choice. You are born poor. Your father gave all the money to your stepbrother, Kubera or whoever it is. With your effort, you come up. You became an emperor, you have a private island, a private jet, Pushpaga, a private island, you are a big scholar, musician, you have multiple wives, you enjoy, you have great sons who conquers Indra, brings everybody, puts here, and he rules for 10,000 years to, mind you. 10,000 years if I can live with private wife, not wife, sorry, that is always private jet and private island and all those things. And on the 10,000th year, I do some mistake because I am a rascal. I do some mistake. I am Ravan. I do some mistake. And finally, I fight. All my people, they fight and die for me. The kind of loyalty which I have inspired. I created the Suvarna Lanka, the golden Lanka. You come and burn it down. Again, I build it back. And everyone fights for me, including my brother who has been sleeping. He wakes up and fights for me and dies. Everyone fights for me. Finally, I also die. But I lived as a king and died as a king. And finally, I recognize, okay, the person who killed me is Vishnu, Ram, so I say Jai Sri Ram and I die. I am ready for that.
Yeah, we get your point. And Koral, what about you?
I think everybody, all of us, are Draupadi in some way or the other. On a serious note, Draupadi because when we are walking up the ladder of success, there's hardly anybody who will be able to say that they are not confronted or tried to pull down by their own people. On a less serious note, as Anand says, nobody should get offended. Most women are Draupadi because we all get married to 5. We actually choose, or we are actually married by the one in between. Why do we get married to the person we get married to? We look at 2 things, style and talent, right? So we get married to Arjun. And then when we go to our in-laws' place, there's a mother-in-law who says that, hey, 1 ke saath 4 free. If you have got married to this one, you have to marry the other 4 also. Now, who are the other 4? First comes Yudhishthir, who is the bichara dharma guy who is trying to maintain balance everywhere. And he is also his amma ka chapcha. Second is Bhim, high on male ego, very, muscular and stuff, and trying to say that I will protect you, chahe kuch bhi ho jaye. Third is Arjun, of course. Fourth is Nakula, who is beautiful. And every person might have a lot of dark sides, grey sides, whatever. But every person has something beautiful about that person, and that beauty is represented by Nandita. Fourth is Sahadev. Knows everything, extremely intelligent, lots of wisdom, but won't talk. Gila kavya usko bed pe hi rakhna. So he knows that is not the right thing to do. So we actually get married to 5. And then
And who is Karna?
Hold on. Then it happens that I said 5, I never said 6.
No,
So,
that's what. So who is Karna?
Hold on.
We won't get into nitty-gritties there because we are pressed for time.
Now what happens is, who do we get first? Get to spend life with first? The dharma guy. The guy that we married to has been pushed behind. वो कहीं पे वनवास जाके बैठा हुआ है. We spend time with Yudhishthira, balancing and Amma ka chamcha. Now we have to balance the male ego. Then we get to find, okay, this guy is nice also. Then we get to find the wisdom guy. At the end, we get to find actually the guy that we married to who was talented and stylish, but by then we are exhausted. That's what happens.
Thank you. I hope no offense was taken by anybody and said in a lighter vein, but very philosophical intakes. And so we have, would the audience, any of you like to ask any question? So they're saying that some of you might like to beat them. I hope it's a negative.
I will show who to beat.
Chivalrous. This is called chivalrous man.
सर एक बात अच्छा जो 4 रामायण 4 महाभारत सबके सामने
तो एक चीज बहुत दिया
सर ये जो 4 आपने कहा वर्जन है महाभारत कहाँ से आपको मालूम चला because we have only heard of one version.
Actually, it is not 4 versions. There is this, it's not a story. You go to Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute site. They took 50 years to compile the critical edition of Mahabharata. In that, around 1,200 versions they encountered. And they didn't consider many of the oral versions. They considered only the written versions. Valmiki is separate, Ramayana is separate. I'm talking about Mahabharata. Since you asked a Mahabharata question, no? So in this, many of this tradition, these references come. That there are other tradition. Only Ashwatthama was some part is there, which people have got. The other 2 are only, many of the books come as inferences, like the reference of that book is there in this version of Mahabharata. That Mahabharata, nobody has got it. So 99% of our books, we have lost it. We only get references about those books. For example, many of these books were burned because they were, used to write it with hand. Many of them were burned. And what is available as oral, not even 1% was ever written down. So it's so vast. So why I was telling about Bhandarkar Research Institute thing, they then cut down the number of Mahabharata to be considered to 8. From only 8 languages, not numbers to 8. They avoided many major classical languages because they were, even after 50 years, they were not reaching anywhere. So what you find it even as a critical edition is a very partial one, is what I want to say. So it's such a huge, vast tradition.
So my question is for Anand sir. You tend to explore such contrarian perspectives and you think so outside of the box. So my question is, what is your inspiration to think so differently? And what is your process as a storyteller to create those thoughts into stories for the audience?
Actually, I am not thinking differently. This is the tradition, is what I am saying. The tradition of teaching, I was trained in the very traditional method from my childhood. I didn't read my Ramayana or Mahabharata from the books. So wherever the Indian tradition or the ancient Indian tradition has remained untouched, this is how they teach it. It is always through debate. So you can find the glimpses of it. What are Upanishads? Upanishads are debates. They are not commandments. That God has come and told you have to do so and so things. If you don't do it, I will take you to hell and make you tandoor. No. It's not that. It is all debate. So even Bhagavad Gita, imagine it, God himself comes to Arjun Bhagavan, not God. It's two different things. Bhagavan comes to Arjun and gives him an entire Gita. Well, so if all the slokas, if he narrates, just to narrate it, it will be 3-4 hours. So these people were just standing and biting their nails, Kaurava sides. For hours he was narrating it. After doing all these things, Arjuna doesn't have any clue. So finally he shows his Vishwarupa also, saying that I am the universe. What I am telling this. Even then, after that Arjuna has another 500 questions. Imagine this culture, no? Even God comes and says, Bhagavan comes and says, Arjuna has 100 questions. Again the debate continues. So this is the tradition of India. So I am very, because I come from an ancient town where many of these things remain untouched. I come from that tradition. They make you think from all angles. So that's what I said. One side, one group of people sit and argue for Ravan. Other side, they will argue for Ram. Next day when they come, they would have changed sides. So they are trying to argue from all sides. I learned my storytelling and Puranas from this tradition, which is a traditional Indian tradition. So we were forced to question rather. If you don't ask question, no, we used to get... even after asking question, I used to be beaten up by my father because I used to ask unnecessary questions. At the age of... the first time I got really beaten up was...
A question for Koral, if I could ask please. So, but the question is mythology the final word or is it still evolving? Is it evolving with each generation, each storyteller, or are the characters and what they did is absolutely like final word? Because stories have been told. That's what mythology is. Is it evolving even now?
You know, it depends upon how you look at mythology or what mythology is for you. अगर mythology आपके लिए religious narrative है, तो इसके evolution के chances
I'm asking from your perspective.
Yeah, I'm saying that it depends upon how you look at it, how anybody looks at it. If for anybody, अगर ये धर्म ग्रंथ है, तो फिर इसके evolution के time नहीं है, मतलब कोई जगह नहीं है, because God is absolute. That is what we learn. That भगवान को सवाल नहीं पूछेंगे. Which is a different thing altogether that हमारे धर्म ग्रंथ में गीता भी है, which Anand pointed out, where a human asks questions to God himself.
Thank you so much, everyone.